In part 3 of today's series, we have a Colombian Americano, and we're going to be installing an Empi SuperDiff. The factory setup, you have the 2 side gears and you have 2 spider gears inside. With the SuperDiff, the idea is that you add an additional 2 spider gears to it. So you have the front, the rear, and then you're going to have a top and bottom. 4 total spider gears, 4 points of contact, a lot stronger. So here we are with the SuperDiff, and we did some reading online on the forums and such. I'll put a couple of pictures up here. There's some modifications on these SuperDiffs that are necessary in order to prolong the life of it. So one big issue, as you can see, there's not a lot of windows because there's going to be 4 spider gears inside. So the oiling internally is an issue. On this end, you can see this is the oiling hole here, this one closest to us. So it actually gets into this area here where it distributes oil on the side gears and the fulcrum plates. On the other side, however, let's flip it over here, there's no hole, right? The hole is actually behind this radius. That hole there is on the outside. Looking at it straight, you won't see it. So there's a bit of an issue with getting oil there and actually lubricating things properly. So one modification that you do, according to the rotation of the differential, I've already marked it. Where's my mark? That way. So when the car is running forward, in the forward direction, the differential spins this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to chamfer out these holes so it scoops the oil into the differential. So these are the existing holes for oiling on this side. We're also going to drill holes on an angle that way. So we're going to go into here, probably drill at least 2 into this material here, going on that angle that way. So when it protrudes through, it'll be in this surface here as opposed to being on the radius further out. On this side here, same thing. We're just going to chamfer. You can see where I put the Sharpie. So we'll chamfer this hole open a lot larger, and it'll scoop the oil in while it's running in the forward direction. So those are the 2 modifications to the SuperDiff itself. Now the side plates, we're going to be drilling a hole through this section here, which will, so going through this section here, it'll come out just above here, okay, inside this recess. And then we're also going to drill a slot into the cone section here, going straight down, which will come out somewhere over here. So the idea is that oil being splashed up by the differential is going to be caught up in here. It's going to drip down the front, which will drip down through the cone into the fulcrum plates directly. So that's the idea there. Let's go ahead and drill it. All right, so here we are. We've got our slot in this end here. We've got our hole up here. I did nick it a little bit with the drill bit, but there is still land underneath it. So it's not the whole lip here. Worst case scenario, I'll just put a little bit of silicone in that spot before we put the flange back on. That way we won't have any oil leaks. But it is at the top, so it's very unlikely. Now, inside you can see here where it ends up. You can see the hole here. I also drilled through the webbing, right? So I have a straight hole. A little bit of a taper to it, right? You can see it there. It just angles slightly out. So this arrow represents the top. Any oil that lands in this area in between this webbing is going to go through that hole, in through that hole, out through here, into that slot, and right onto the fulcrum plates, axle, side gear, that goodness. So that's the idea there. Again, it's in that post. So guys have been doing this for years, and this is the secret to making the SuperDiff last. So the plates are done. On the differential side, we just finished drilling it all out. So the existing holes for oiling on this, I just put a drill bit in and I slotted the hole slightly. So you can see there's that one, and that one, all 4 of them. So basically they're going to scoop oil in the direction of travel. And I also drilled 2 additional holes. So here we go. I have one here drilled. Again, on a bit of an angle that way, so it's going to scoop oil into it, but it's going to deposit it inside the running area. So the issue with this before, with the factory holes, is that the oil holes are all the way at the front. So they're in the radius. they're not on the flat where the side gear runs. So now the new holes, they're in the flat, they're actually angled towards us, so they're going to put more oil in the areas that we need it. On the opposite end, the non-ring gear side, these holes were existing, same idea. I've created a bit of a taper so the oil rolls into it. So that takes care of the oiling issues of the differential. So let's go ahead, let's put the ring gear on this and torque everything down with some red Loctite. Half-inch drive extension in the hole that would hold the pin for the spider gears. So that's what I'm going to use to stabilize the differential. I'm going to go ahead and go in a star pattern. These are the same shims that came out. We are going to be reusing them, and hopefully the lash is set correctly with using the same shims. So that was the non-ring gear side. The ring gear side I had marked. So we'll go ahead and put those on. These will go over here. We're just going to wipe them first. We'll put a new bearing on, and let's throw it in the press and press it. All right, both our bearings are installed. Well, this is the side with the ring gear. Differential goes in like so. So we will place the non-clutch lever side cover on. This guy here, put the O-ring on, bolt it in. It's going to be permanent. It's not going to be removed again. And the differential will be inserted and removed on this side only. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we are, a little bit of oil on the O-ring. Going to go ahead and center it up. Currently editing, and I noticed I lost a bit of footage. You're going to see here a little skip between clips. You see that I'm installing the SuperDiff, but then I'm going to jump right back to removing the SuperDiff. And so in this instance, I assembled it, but the lash was too loose. I used some blue paint that's used for marking gears for the contact, and I put it on the ring gear. I assembled it, and then I pulled it apart again, and that's what you'll see in this clip. And we go ahead, we move shims from one side of the differential to the other. Let's get back to the clips. Micrometer is out, measured all the thickness of the shims. We're going to go ahead and place the 10th shim from the right side of the box on the left side, and hopefully push the ring gear closer into the pinion and get better contact. So we've got them all measured out here. The 10th shim from that one is going to go on this side. This side we also had a 130 thou, and this one had a 131. So we're going to favor it and put the 131 with the 210s on the ring gear side, and then we'll place the 130 by itself on the opposing side. Place the shims on that end. So now we're going to go ahead and place the 31 thou shim on this end, which goes on like that. We've cleaned up the case with brake clean and everything like that. Cleaned up the gear, took the blue compound off, took it off the pinion. So we're going to go ahead and put the transmission with the open end facing up and drop the side gear with the ring gear and differential right into that. Side cover is all torqued down. The lash in the gear, I'll let you guys listen here. It's very minimal. It's exactly what I wanted. Sounds nice when everything spins. You can see everything spinning in there. Perfect. I know that's gonna survive. We had to go ahead and we had to take 2 thou off this surface of the axle. So these ends, I just polished them a little bit, but this end here, 2 thou had to come off in order to sit into the side gear with the new fulcrum plates. So it was 2 thou oversized. I did take a measurement from the original axle. That might be wear induced. That might be just a manufacturing thing. But taking the paint off wasn't enough. So 2 thou had to come off metal-wise. That's good now. Let's go ahead, throw some oil on these guys. We're going to assemble this axle out here so it's easier than doing it in there. And we'll slip it all in with the side gear afterwards. Okay, I'll put this guy as well. So the easiest way I found was to slip these in there, right? There's a hole on the back side. So here, I got my finger in the middle. I'm going to take the axle now, and I'm going to start it up, going in. I have my finger just guiding the fulcrum plates. There we go, and it's in all the way, just like that. Everything's oiled up nicely. So what we need, we're gonna go ahead and slide this into the transmission as an assembly. Okay, and it's in. So the thrust washer slides in, lines up beautifully, looks good. We're gonna go ahead and grab the snap ring pliers and insert the snap rings one by one. So the snap rings are inserted now. The axle moves around nicely in there. Got the axle tube prepared with a new sealed bearing in the end. We've cleaned all the mating surfaces up. The axle's installed. We've got the gasket there. Let's go ahead and slide the axle tube over. We're gonna have to knock it a little bit just to get the bearing to seat over the axle. It is a bit of a press fit, but let's go ahead and assemble it. So here we are with the transmission on the ground. It's fully assembled now, but we did lose some footage. I'm gonna touch base before we end this video. So here's the axle tubes. On the last clip, we just finished installing them. So one thing to note on the new axle, which is on that side actually, where the wheel bearing sits, it needed to be sanded. There was a bit of paint there, but also the diameter wasn't 100% accurate, and it wasn't allowing the spacer to slide all the way up to the shoulder on the axle itself. So without that, then when I tightened the bearing housing on, everything was binding up inside. So I had to clean that off. I have the spacer with the taper facing the shoulder, then I have the bearing, and then I have the washer. So I have the outer spacer, then I have the seal over top of that, and then another washer inside the bearing housing. So that's how it's all assembled. There is only one gasket inside here, and the lash is correct. I also have one paper gasket behind the flange here. So with that assembly, the lash was perfect. So you can actually add extra paper gaskets if it's too tight, too much preload, and you can also add some there. So depending on what you need in your case, you can vary from what I've done. The boots, super simple, 2 hose clamps, a bunch of 8 mils. So we just tighten those on. So that's the full assembly for this video. Cheers, guys.